Hi, my name's Jennifer, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you another book haul. I only did a book haul about 2 weeks ago, but I have managed to acquire several books since then that I thought I would show you. So a couple of these are books I've picked up second hand, a few of them I've bought new, and then a lot of them are library books. So we'll start with the books I've bought new first. First up is An Island by Jennings. This was longlisted for last year's Booker Prize. It was one that I was quite interested in reading, but it didn't make the shortlist, and it had quite a small print run, I believe, so it wasn't that easy to get a hold of. I don't know that much about what it's about. It's about someone who is, I think, lives quite a lonely life on an island, and then someone else appears on the island. That's all I know, but I've heard good things about it, so I'm interested to read that. The next book I picked up new was Consent by Annabel Lyon. This was longlisted for last year's Women's Prize. It was a book that I thought sounded quite interesting, but it didn't make the shortlist, and then I haven't heard that much about it since. It's about twin sisters. One of them has a severe accident and needs caring for by the other, and then we go from there. And it says it's about revenge as well, so I'm really looking forward to reading that one. Next up is a book that I've wanted to read for a while, so when I saw it in the bookshop I picked it up, and that's If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura. So this is a Japanese book, and it is, I believe, about what happens when someone is given the opportunity to live for an extra day, but to do so they have to agree that a certain item is going to disappear from the world. And I think every day, to have an extra day of living, they can choose an extra thing that's going to disappear from the world. Okay, so next up, the two books that I bought second hand. First up is Saltwater by Jessica Andrews. This is a book that I've heard Ange from Ange's Book Chatter recommend. I hadn't actually heard of it before I heard her talking about it. So it's from someone who moves from Sunderland to London. It says it explores the complexities of mother-daughter relationships and the challenges of shifting class identity. And it looks like it's told in quite very short little sections. So that looks interesting. And then next up I bought a book from a charity shop which I have read before. This is Love and Other Thought Experiments by Sophie. So I read this, it must have been 2 years ago, and absolutely loved it. But when I read it, so it says on the back that it's interlinked stories. When I read it, I read the hardback, and I don't think it said that on the back, so I read it as if it were short stories. And I still really loved it, but when I read it again, I want to read it in one go as if it were a novel. This is a very, very strange, in some ways kind of mind-bending book from what I can remember. Then I'll show you my library books that I picked up this morning. So first of all, what I'm very excited about, because I'm going to be reading this for my reading group next month, and this was my selection. This is Mrs. Death by Selena Godden. So I've wanted to read this since it first came out, I think early last year, but when I saw that the library had a reading group set of the book, I held off reading it myself until I could read it with the group. So I've only heard good things about this book. So this is about Mrs. Death, who's a black working class woman who shape-shifts. And she meets someone called Wolf, and together they travel across time and place to witness deaths of past and present and discuss what the future holds for humanity. So it sounds very strange, but I am intrigued. Next up is a short story collection. This is People from My Neighbourhood by Hiromi Kawakami. This is a teeny tiny, this is like the smallest book I've ever seen in my life. This is a short story collection, and there's actually, would you believe it, 36 short stories in this teeny tiny book. So I believe this is about, stories about people who live in this one neighbourhood. This is a Japanese book. Next up, I might be the only booktuber who has not yet read this book, and that's Detransition Baby by Torrey Peters. This also was longlisted for last year's Women's Prize. This is about 3 people, 2 of whom are trans and 1 is cisgender, and about them, I think, raising a baby together. I am super excited to read this. Lots of people really, really love this book, and I'm really intrigued to see what I think of it. Next up is a book which I can't remember where I heard about it, but this is Housekeeping by Marilynne Robinson. This, I think, was published in the 80s, and it's about 2 orphans growing up in a town in America. It says it's a haunting, poetic story. It's one of the Observer's 100 greatest novels of all time. So that's quite high praise. Next up, a book which looks really, really good. This is Trust by Domenico Starnone, which is about a couple who, one of whom has this dark secret, and he tells his girlfriend about this dark secret, and then they break up. And then I think it's like he's haunted by the fact that she knows this secret about him. But yeah, this sounds really good. Next is I'm Waiting for You by Kimbo Young. This, I think, is Korean. Yeah, it's Korean, and it's sci-fi, and it's short stories, but I believe it's 2 sets of interlinked short stories, which examine the very meaning of existence. Okay, another library book. This is a book which I'd heard about but didn't actually know anything about it. And when I actually found out last week what it was about, I was like, I need to read that book. This is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. I've never read anything by her before, but this is a book that's set in an independent bookstore in Minneapolis. And the bookstore is haunted by Flora, who is a customer who has died. So I am intrigued to read that one. The next 3, the final 3 books that I want to show you are books that I picked up this morning from the library, which I had not reserved. I usually reserve all my library books and just pick them up there rather than browsing. But these I wasn't planning to get, but I just picked them up. So the first one is a book which someone in the reading group has read recently and recommended, and that's The Reading List by Sara and Nisha Adams, which I believe is about a someone who discovers a list in a library book, a list of other books, and it's about them, I think, finding other people who've read the books. I'm not sure, but it sounds like it might be quite a nice light-hearted read. Next up is a book which, when myself and someone else from the library group were looking at the display in the at the front of the library, she said to me, she handed me this book and she was like, oh, this looks like your kind of book. And I was like, oh yeah, I was actually just eyeing it up. And that is The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I've not read any Grady Hendrix before, and I feel like I've heard mixed things about this, but I thought I'd give it a go. So that I believe this is like a horror thriller about a group of girls, final girls, and someone probably tries to kill them off one by one. I don't know, I'm making that up, but that's what I am predicting the book is going to be about. And then the final book that I picked up this morning, because I saw it on the library display, was Matrix by Lauren Groff. So I've heard Greg from Supposedly Fun talk about this book. I think it's about lesbian nuns. It's blurbed by Sarah Waters, which is always a good sign, and I love this cover. It's just gorgeous. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to think about this, because it looks a bit, it sounds like it might be a bit epic, which is not my usual kind of thing, but I will give it a go. So that's my book haul for today. Let me know if you've read any of those books, what you thought of them. I hope you are enjoying your reading, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye.